Good evening, survivors. We're excited to have Brendan Murphy on with us tonight. He has a really inspiring story, so we're excited to hear his story. And we actually just recently met, kind of feels like recent. And he what was it, like at a barbecue or something, and then he kind of told us a little bit about his father and what he did in memory of him. And then we were involved with a triathlon that he was in charge of that was amazing. So pretty awesome guy to have here on Survivors tonight.
So Brendan comes into us with a lot of credentials. I told him that our time is limited, so we'd probably take up about half of the time allotted to us if I went through all the accolades of this guy. He's a powerhouse. Multiple time finisher Ironman guy, already in retirement. I know he doesn't look a day over 35, but he's already pulls an retirement from the service in the National Guard and the Air Force. Was over PR in the National Guard here in the Rapid City area, and now has recently ambitiously taken up another opportunity to be over the public relations for the VA hospital in the Black Hills here. So obviously a guy that's filled with his heart with a desire to serve his country and serve his fellow countrymen and women. So awesome guy. I wanted to highlight, I wish I could zoom in on the thing, but he's got that big old logo on his chest, Chemo is Harder. So we're going to hear a little bit about Chemo is Harder tonight. That's kind of what Stacy was alluding to, that caught our attention when we first started meeting him and talking about, and maybe some similar paths in life in terms of dealing with death and finding a desire to want to do something else than just suffer and be miserable because of the loss. So Brendan, we are super excited to have you on board with us tonight and to come and share your story. So welcome you here. I know we're here in Rapid City with Brendan, and we appreciate him meeting with us tonight. So Brendan, give us a little rundown of your story. Tell us a little bit about your dad and how all that kind of got started for us.
Well, first of all, thank you, Josh and Stacy, for hosting this and having me on Survivors tonight. What a real blessing it's been, to have gotten to know both of you and your family. And anyway, just really grateful for the opportunity. And thank you to all the listeners that are out there watching tonight. We all have a story. And, that's why we're all coming together on Survivors, because there's something in our life that was really changed us to the core, and that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. My dad and I were like best friends, back in, when I was a little kid. It kind of started, he had a little spot on his arm. It was just his left arm and he had to get it removed, and it was, at the time it was melanoma, but we didn't know. I mean, my sisters and I were still laying out in the sun, putting baby lotion on, and we didn't really care. We're like, yeah, whatever, Dad. But we didn't know the seriousness of what he was really going through. He kept it quiet. And, years went by, and turns out, after, he was 12 years cancer-free, and he was about a month away from retirement. And all of a sudden he got sick and couldn't shake this cold. I was in the Air Force at the time, and I remember coming home and him saying, "Hey, feel this under my left arm." I'm like, what in the world is that? It's like this huge bump. And he's like, yeah, it's my lymph nodes kicking in. I'm fighting something. I can't kick it. I'm like, you got to get that checked out. My mom's like, I told you so, Tom, you got to get it looked at. And so he went in the next week, and it changed our lives. All of a sudden it was, oh my gosh, your cancer's back after 12 years. So he thought he was in the free. Here he is about to retire after over 30 years being a master technician in Minigasco, a place in Minneapolis. And, the plans, he and my mom were talking about traveling and doing all these things that, he worked and worked and worked so hard for. we didn't have anything as kids really, because it was a modest living, but they worked very hard for what they had. And to see it all of a sudden, just thinking back, what's going on? Like, what does this really mean? And sure enough, he had to get all his lymph nodes taken out and start radiation and chemo immediately. And for the next 2 years, it was horrible. Anybody that's anybody that's dealt with excuse me, someone that's a loved one, especially like my dad, he and I were such good friends. And he's an old Vietnam vet, so he's very very hard-headed, just a super guy. Everyone loved my dad. And he never wanted anything from anybody, but he gave his shirt off his back. To see him go through that, it was terrible. He was a pretty large guy, 6'1", and probably about 230 pounds, and over those 2 years to see what chemo and radiation did to him. And of course, I'm here in Rapid City experiencing this from a distance, where my little sister and my mom were right there, my older sister as well, but my little sister was living with my parents at the time. And it was horrible. And the worst day was when I got the call from my sister Erin, and I was at work, and she's like, "You got to come home." And that was the only words that were said. I hung up the phone. I knew exactly what she meant. Dad was dying. And I immediately went home, and people are like, "How long are you going to be gone?" I don't know, probably a month or so. And when I got there, he looked great. I just thought, wait, what's going on? And I look at my sister like, "Hey, what's going on here?" She's like, "He's at the end." Like, what? What, are you kidding me? And yep, it was to see him go through those last couple of weeks of his life, and just kind of waste away. And I'll tell you, it was a real, despite the fact that it was obviously a family tragedy for all of us, it kind of took me some time after he passed to really reflect and say, what a gift from God that he gave us, we got to say our goodbyes. And I know that not all of you got to say your goodbyes to your loved one, so that last week in particular, we just hugged each other, talked, and just embraced each other, and just said how much we loved each other. And we just knew it was his time. And each day was very, very apparent that we were at the end, and to really just have that opportunity to be there with him and spend the last minutes. And I'll tell you, the real special thing is, as we had the whole family, and I come from a pretty large family as it is, and we have family, friends, they're all in North Minneapolis, and they're coming to the house because we did home hospice, and everyone's there, all our cousins, all my aunts and uncles. And then my grandma, who at the time was 90, my dad's mom, she comes, she's sitting there, and she's old and frail, but she's still very with it. And she just we were just waiting on a couple folks, everyone was there. And my Uncle John, the oldest brother, says, hey mom, maybe you should say something to Tom. And literally it was awesome. It's like, Tom, it's time to go. It's okay. And within 30 seconds, he was gone. So, just the power of, family and prayer and, love for a higher power that, it's helped us get through that whole time. And, after that, upon reflecting and why, when I met Josh and Stacy, it took some time, but I knew I wanted to do something to honor my dad, who obviously had, dealt horribly with his cancer over all those years, thinking that, even though he was cancer free, according to the doctors, when he was sitting with me, it was just a few days before he passed. He's like, there hasn't been a day I haven't thought about my cancer. In these, now it was essentially 14 years. And I never knew that. And I just thought, oh my gosh, what a burden, and so I wanted to do something to honor him, but also help those that had been affected by cancer. Time went on, and in fact, about 5 years fast forward, I met a guy that changed my life, and Nolan Taylor is his name. And he was a runner and I was a marathoner, and I was looking to do something special. I was like, I'm training for this 50-mile race, and he overheard me. He's like, hey, I've done one of these. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Let's get together. Let me pick your brain. Well, it turns out through our friendship, turns out his dad was going through tonsil cancer treatment at the time. And I said, oh, wow, I really want to do something for my dad. And we started talking about what we could do. And literally we met at Bully Blends in Rapid City here back early 2008. And we were just going to go for a cup of coffee. Well, about 4 hours later, we had drawn out everything on napkins. But, our brains are just going and going. We had it all mapped out. Our whole plan was, we called it chemo is harder. So in the mantra, it still rings true to this day. All those years later, it's no matter what you have going on in life, if you don't have cancer, just be thankful, right? Just praise God that you don't have to deal with that. Just like my dad, he had this burden all these years of dealing with, is it going to come back? Is it going to come back? And then ultimately, he didn't make it. But we thought, wow, what a gift. If we can help other people, no matter, even if you think you're having a bad day, just imagine people with cancer. I mean, they are dealing with stuff that we can't imagine. So that was our rallying cry. We said, let's do something really out there. So we decided to run across the state of South Dakota, the long way. And it's 429 miles from Capital, Montana, which is the border town, all the way to Minnesota, which, basically we took a northern route, and we wanted to do it self-sufficient. Didn't want any sag wagons or anything. We literally packed a bob cart, like an Ironman bob cart, stroller, our food, water, clothing for 2 weeks. So we were going to do about 31 miles a day for 14 days. And it took us almost a year. We trained for a year, learned how to eat on the run and how to just, pack efficiently. And, just training for that was just something I had never done. Especially, it's one thing to do a marathon one day, but then Oh, guess what? I'm doing it tomorrow. Oh, and the next day and the next day, just consistently. So how do you do that? And so it takes time. So at the end of that, the whole goal was to raise money for cancer research. And we use Chemo is Harder as a way to do that through the American Cancer Society. And I'll tell you, it was one of the greatest things I've ever done. For sure, it's the thing I'm probably most proud of besides marrying my wife. Thank God, right? She was allowed a guy like me to hang with her. And then, of course, our son, Mason, is just a gift. But this is definitely up there as a proud achievement because it wasn't for me. It was doing something for other people. So anyway, that's kind of the story. And I know I could go on, but that's kind of what led me to want to kind of lead a life of service. Like I said, it was a gift that upon reflection, looking at what happened to my dad, I thought, I could sit here and complain and cry and be angry at the world, but why do that? That makes no sense. I'd rather do something positive, and project positivity and love and kindness, because that's kind of my nature. And this is just one of those ways to be able to, hopefully help others, inspire others, lead others. My mantra for the trip was, the journey is a reward, because no matter what day it was, there's always something that was super cool. As we blogged throughout the day, people dropping off money, young kids coming up. Oh, this is awesome. Can I get your picture with you guys? Going to a high school, grade school, talking to the kids and teachers. All this stuff that really, people are saying, oh, you're impacting other life. No, I think we definitely got the better end of the deal. It changed my life forever. And I'm just so proud to have been able to do that and hopefully continue to inspire others through acts of kindness and good works.
That's awesome.
So amazing.
Yeah, that's I get goosebumps just thinking. I can't imagine, sometimes you get those little bit of a harebrained ideas that feel really good, and fill your soul with excitement, but they also have a little bit of scariness, little pucker factor to them, because you're like, once you commit, it's like, oh baby, what did I just sign up for, right? So I think one thing that you mentioned to me in the past, and if it's not too personal, would you mind sharing with us what the conversation that you and your dad had, where he asked you some questions about life, and which kind of triggered some of the decisions that you made, and what impact those conversations had for you? And timeline, when was that conversation that you had? Was that during his cancer years, or was that prior to?
Yeah, so those conversations were really end of life. It was the last couple of weeks, truly. One of those things that one of the questions, I think, and it sticks in my mind probably more than any other question he's ever asked me. You think of all the things that your parents have told you or the advice they've given you. I don't know if one thing sticks out. Mine does. There's a couple of things, but this one more than anything. And it really, it kind of rocked me to the core. And it, it was within the last week, and he just looks at me and he's like, Brendan, I can't take any of this with me. Okay. I know I'm going to a good place. My faith has led me to that. What are you going to be remembered for? What are you going to do in your life that has meaning and purpose, and that's something you can be proud of? So what are you going to be remembered for? And it was like, oh my, years ago at that time, I was still drinking. I have since quit drinking because, I'm an alcoholic that comes from a long line of alcoholics. And it's, I used to kind of want to just keep that under wraps, but it's like, I can't hide it. It's who I am. I'm not one of those guys that could just have, hey, let's go have a beer. Well, my idea was, no, let's go have about a case of beers. So my dad, what got me thinking was, well, I can't be remembered as a drunk. Okay, I can't. I don't want to be that guy. And I'll tell you, when I was in the military, in my Air Force days, I was still drinking. But when I got in the National Guard, I had quit drinking by then. And so there's only a couple people, in the later part of my life that had ever seen me. If they've known me for years, they know they've maybe had some drinks with me. But most of the people in the military that I know nowadays are just, they just have a different perspective, because I said, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna be a better person. I'm gonna get into fitness. So all of a sudden it opened up a whole new world to me, where I'll be honest, I was partying so much and going out to the bars that come the weekend, I was kind of worthless. I wasn't doing 5Ks, 10Ks, triathlons, marathons, but I switched it around. I just said, if I want to go down that path, like I had been, I'll be remembered for something, but it's not what I want. So I totally changed.
Like, what a gift. That's a gift that your dad gave you, I think. Just asking that question to you.
Yeah,
changed
absolutely
your life for the better. Wow, that's amazing.
So one of the core things that, and the reason I asked that question is to that point of Stacy's exactly, I think sometimes think about the suffering your dad was going through in that moment, but somehow he was still able to turn his heart outward. Mm-hmm. He was mindful of you as his son. He was mindful of his, family, and what an amazing service that he provided you in that gift of asking you that question, having that heart to heart with you because of your father asking you that question. I know you now. I didn't know you then, but I know you now. And I know that the father that you are to your son, Mason, is directly and certainly powerfully impacted by that question of your father. I just think that, so I appreciate you answering that. I think that is a valuable lesson for all of us, that even in our suffering, there still are gifts and ways that we can serve our family and friends, even in our loss, even in our tough struggles. So thanks for sharing that with us. I know that we're kind of, this is the business we're in with survivors, is we deal with hard conversations all the time and emotion. But I appreciate you sharing that part of your heart with us a ton. That's awesome. One of the things I think we can't fully comprehend is how much our decisions, even if we can only see a little bit in front of us, how much our decisions to think of others and to put that service oriented that in our front of our minds, we have no idea the ripple effect that it causes. The fact that you're here tonight with us is a continuing ripple effect from that shirt that you're wearing, Chemo is Harder. It's a continuing ripple effect from that question that your dad got, gift that your dad gave you in that question. Because in loss, let me tell you, that alcoholism and those things, they only get enraged if you don't be careful and aren't mindful of that opportunity. And we see, unfortunately, families and individuals go down that path in their attempt to cope with their grief and whatnot.
I have a question. So
sure.
in your 2 weeks of running across the state, there had to have been really hard days. Like, of course, you have good days and bad days. So on those hard days, what is it that kept you going?
I'm gonna give a follow-up to the answer. Nolan, you've got a really cool story with Nolan right from the get-go. So share with us that part.
So Nolan was a collegiate cross-country runner. He was a distance runner. The guy was phenomenal. He'd do like a 14 and a half 5K. That was the level he was at.
Lightning fast.
And just the coolest guy you'll ever meet. So nice.
I gotta meet this guy someday.
You do. And I would love to introduce you, because you would love him instantly.
Yeah, we need to get him on here on Survivors, have him share his story.
Yeah. So we had, like I said, we trained almost that whole year, and we get to the beginning of the rate or the journey. And by the end of the very first day, we got 2 weeks of this. He tweaks his knee. And I'm like, uh-oh. He kind of looks at me. He's like, dude, I don't know if I can finish. I'm like, what? Like, what? He's like, I don't know. I don't know what I did, but I tweaked it really bad. And so we got through the first day, and it was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? I said, I feel great, buddy. I gotta do this for both of us then, which I'm willing to do, but what do you think? He goes, let me sleep on it and see what happens. We said some prayers, and I don't know. So he, even though his knee wasn't feeling great, what he decided to do is just like a run, kind of more of a walk, and then just a real fast, almost
like an Olympic speed walk or something.
Kind of. He was doing, it was unbelievable. He could do it was like crazy, like an 11.5-minute speed walk per mile.
Oh,
wow.
And I'm like, most people, there's people that struggle doing, so what I would do, yeah, I know. I would leapfrog. So I would run and then let him catch up. So I was like, kind of doing this number. But because of that, because I started walking a lot, I'd never trained for walking. I just ran. I tweaked my Achilles.
Oh no.
And I ended up getting bone spurs from this deal, like that. And not only that, because I changed my gait in my whole running strategy, I had these blisters like on the bottom of my feet after like the first few days, and it lasted a few days. And I literally remember going to bed, and I was getting almost no sleep, because like every 20 minutes I was waking up and I had these blisters and I had to pop them.
Oh.
They were like gonna explode. And I'm like, and I remember after the first, we wake up and it's like, how long we got to go today? Oh, 41 today, because some of the days were a little longer, but it is about a marathon each day. But I looked down, and you asked, like, how do you keep motivated? And I literally, so what I did is on the top of my bob cart, it's got that little canopy for kids, so that keeps the sun out of their eyes. Well, I got everything packed, and what I did is I put like a little picture of my dad from his obituary, this cool little write-up, and an Irish pin that he had given me. And I laminated it, so it was like perfect. And my dad had this awesome smile. So like, looking at this, I was like, because I'm thinking, I don't know if I can do this. And I just looked down, it's like, well, if it were up to me, like I'm just doing this just to say I did something, I'd have said, no way, I'm not. But I looked down and it was like, no, my dad, I'm doing this for you, I'm gonna gut this out. And I had to do that for a few days. And along the way, I'd have to stop, take a little pin, pop my blisters, and then keep going.
Jeez.
Just, for like almost 4 days. of doing that, by the end of the race, by the end of this thing, I told my wife, she's like, how are your feet? I'm like, I could literally run across glass for the state because they're so like beat up and like callous now that I could be a fire walker, and do that professionally now. But
So
yeah, it was the power of doing something other than yourself, because if it was just a race, that's easy. That's an easy decision. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Why would you put yourself through that?
Mhm.
But I'll tell you, saying some prayers and just looking at that picture of my dad with that big smile, I'm like, I can't pass that up. So it was a great motivator to keep things moving.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
That's really cool.
So what is the Chemo's Harder, what that event, you did that in honor of your dad. How's that affected your life since then up to this day? Because that was in 2008, right?
Yeah.
2008. So
Yeah.
2008, 2021, what has that done for you? What was that a catalyst for you in your life? How's that helped you, and what's that done?
I ended up turning Chemo's Harder into a 501c3 over, it took a little while, but I had some friends and I do that in the event, if I ever do something with it. And then I decided here, within the last couple of years, like, I'm so busy with so many other things that I'm just going to keep that as a fantastic memory, because what I've done, what Chemo's Harder has done for me is really solidified my spirit of giving to others, doing stuff in my life that sometimes is not always comfortable, but you do it for the benefit of others. I've gotten involved in quite a few things, through the Chamber of Commerce. I did some things with schools, teaching, fourth graders, coaching basketball, helping out with baseball. I look for a lot of opportunities that I can still provide a service, kind of a spirit of sacrifice, I guess, in some ways. We're all busy, and there's a lot of things we, kind of like to do, and particularly we like to gravitate to things that really fit our personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I've gravitated to a lot of things that deal with fitness, and, along with my wife, she and I both do triathlons and run and bike, and, we even get our little Mason in it. And even this last year, it's kind of led me to an opportunity that I was able to take on a new venture with a triathlon, with the Southern Hills Triathlon. They were going to get rid of this race this year after COVID. And man, it was just an opportunity for me to give back to what triathlon did for my life, to be honest. My very first one was at Southern Hills Tri back in 1999. Actually, Jonette and I were just dating, and she's like, hey, let's do this triathlon. It'll be super fun. I'm like, oh yeah, that's easy. No problem. So I show up and I'm the last guy out of the water. You can imagine, like, I don't know, maybe it's not embarrassing to some people, but it was like, I'm trying to impress this girl. She's going to drop me like a bad habit, like right now. And so we get done, and, then I was fine with the biking and running, because those are things I like to do, but it planted a seed in me to want to be good at it, And so I decided that after doing some other triathlons, I realized how bad a swimmer I was. I knew how to swim, but I could stay afloat and not die, but I didn't know how to swim efficiently. So I was on the computer one day and I'm like, hey, honey, I'm going to sign up for Florida Ironman. She's like, what? You're nuts. Like, you don't even know how to swim well. I'm like, boop, I just paid the $700. So I guess I'm locked in. She thought I was crazy. And so what I do, just like I did in the military, it's like, you can see the end, right? You know what the goal is. So you start backward planning. So I'm like, all right, here's the date. Now I got to figure out, I got about a year to get this going. And so I went to the Y every day, and 5 a.m. I was like one of the first guys there, and I was in that pool and reading books, watching YouTube videos, got some help locally from, like the Masters swimming group and Beth Eldridge and some folks. And it was like, it totally changed my attitude and actually changed everything, because now I kind of enjoyed swimming. Whereas before I was afraid, I hated it. Now I was like, I can do this. And not only that, I'm training for something that's kind of crazy, what most people say is crazy. And then when I completed that Ironman, it was like, this is the coolest feeling, right? It just, if anybody's ever been to an Ironman competition, like the music and the atmosphere is amazing, and they're like, Brendan Murphy, you are an Ironman. So, you're coming down the chute and you're just like, yes, this is, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it now. And, I had seen my wife do her first one a few years prior to that. And that's what really got me, I got to do this. I can't be a slug and let my wife kick my butt. And seeing that, so we motivate each other and really encourage each other. I mean, that's how a marriage should be. And, just so grateful for her, because it's really pushed us both into doing something great. And now, since I've done that, and I've done a Boulder Ironman as well, but all these triathlons have led me to now want to give back and get kids involved, get them off the couch, get them off the electronics, get them to really experience life, and do that with your family. You can go for a family bike ride. You can go for a little jog. You could go to the Y and do some swimming, whatever. It's just a way to really encourage people to, gravitate to fitness and have fun doing it. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Is I'm at a point where I really love talking about giving back. I love giving back and saying, here's the things that I've gotten from it, and I'll help you get there. So hopefully people will take advantage of that.
I love it, because our family, we participated from, like, our youngest is 8 to our oldest is 15, and they're minus Grace, she's 2. But they did, like, right after it was done, they're like, when can we do this again? Like, it feels so good. And even I'll tell a little experience about my sister. We kind of talked her into it, like, the day before, and she doesn't work out regularly, but she is a good swimmer. And so her and my mom did kind of a duo thing, and she did the swimming and the running, and she didn't think that she could do it, but she did it. And that has, like, empowered her to change her activity, to change the way she eats. And it was really powerful for her. So
and gave her confidence.
Yeah, it gave her confidence that she could, and that she is stronger than she thinks she is. I'll tell you what,
if she puts some training into it, she'll be an animal. Like I'm not that type of person. I have to train. I can't go out and just perform, but she could just go out and do it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
She dug deep and did awesome.
That's cool. Well, thank you so much for your story. It was so touching and inspiring. And
so 2 harebrained ideas, Brendan, I'm just going to put out there on the big web for us, so that kind of puts us in the commitment. We got to make an Ironman out of the Southern Hills thing. We got to grow this thing, so we get an Ironman out of that, right?
Hey, that sounds great. I think it's got so much potential. It's such a beautiful place. We took the race, which has been amazing, right? That it's a real local, just a great success story. And the people that have been running it from the Friends Library have done just a great job, just that word of mouth. But it's, they're just like, yeah, we just keep it kind of small, and that's fine. That's fine. But I just thought, I think we can make it a little bigger. Well, this year, just through a little bit of kind of social media presence, a little bit of, that marketing, we got over 200 people. So what normally was about 120, I mean, it's
Awesome.
pretty amazing. So there's so much potential. And hearing all these great stories, just like you and your family, that inspires me to want to make it, just really make it the best race, not just track, but best race event in the whole state. Right. So when you go there, you have to go to this race because it's that awesome.
Well, the Nearings are committed to help you get it there.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. Well,
Great.
Brendan, thanks again so much for joining us tonight. What a privilege and an honor it has been over the last, 8 months or so that we've gotten to know you. And the event was fantastic. And we look forward to next year's as well. So keep in touch. And we're actually next week on Survivors Inspires. We're actually going to go into a little bit of detail just to give everybody a little teaser, but Eric and Liza Woodland and myself will be on there and talking a little bit about some of that inspiration that you helped inspire within my family. So, and the gift that you gave to us. So we'll look forward to that next week. And
also this month for the service, every month we have a service for survivors that everyone can get involved in. And my parents have a chapter up in Canada. They did a bike trek across their province after Lily passed away. And so they've done it every year. And this year with survivors, it's Move in Memory. So move for your dad sometime this month, and just whatever you want that to be, just think about him. And we invite everyone to do that. Move in whatever way you love to do, and do it in memory of your loved one.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'll do that for sure.
Thank you.